You're listening to a Skewed Orbit original podcast.
Time, weather, and always pass.
Hi, friends. Oh, you feeling that? That's the end of the year. That's what that is. Just that feeling of, oh, we're so close. We're so close. Well, listen, I think that this is going to be a really, I almost said like jolly episode. That's not the vibe. But just like a really, just if you like dark chocolate, if you just like love just like a little like just warm cup of hot cocoa, if you're a cacao ceremony person, you're going to love this episode. It just is earthy and warm and honest. And I'm so excited for you to hear it. I was so blessed to be able to do a live podcast episode with Chef David Stample. He is a chef and Reiki Master, healing everyone here in the greater Atlanta area, and certainly is off to do amazing big things. He talked all about his journey from working with the Food Network and sometimes how when we get what we think we always want, it's not actually the thing we need, and what that process is like. And if you've been listening, you know that Mama feels similar. So this was a very cathartic and healing conversation. I'm so excited for you to listen to it. It's long, so take breaks if you want. There's so much yummy goodness. There's also, it's long because there's a lot of this. We do that a lot where we just like get high on our own supply. So I trust that it will be exactly what it is that you need right now. So please enjoy this episode with me and Chef David Stample. But for those of you that are watching and going, this is not Rachael's studio. Right. She's live with a friend. Right. He's so handsome. What is happening? Friends, welcome to the very first live podcast recording of The Rachael LaFour Show. There we go. Hold for the applause. We are so excited. We have guests that are joining us today to watch this live. We are so excited. Thank you so much for being the first iteration of a live recording of The Rachael LaFour Show.
Well, thank you for doing it at my home here at Phoenix and Dragon.
Yes. So, friends, if you follow and if you listen to the show, you know that I have been raving about my friend David Stample, chef, Reiki Master, all around just energy and intuitive extraordinaire. I feel like, to me, I want to get into the first time I saw you, but first, please, David, welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here.
This is so fun. So this really is. So you say, yeah, we are coming to you guys live from Phoenix and Dragon, Metaphysical Bookstore here in Sandy Springs,
where we celebrate the human spirit through gifts and books and all types of nice things.
Yes, I love this. And so, I have so many questions.
Yep.
The first one: is there anything that you would like for me to add to your magical title? I called you all of these beautiful things.
What I'm realizing now that we've had our attunements and we've had our workshop, it's RMT, so it's David Stample, Reiki Master Teacher. And I'm really excited about that because I've always wanted to teach and support people, and now we're just super intentional with healing energy.
How cool.
Super cool.
That's so fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
So you like, that's like real. You have like letters after your name now.
Like real. And I'm getting to know him. I'm getting to know David Stample, RMT.
Ooh.
And he gets the opportunity to show up and play here at Phoenix and Dragon every day. And I get to meet my reflections all the time.
Yes. Oh, I love this. I love that so much. There's a woman I follow, and she had like this beautiful, very like monochromatic reel on Instagram today. But I guess she was writing all about, when you see those reels that typically are like the viral, and it says like POV, and it's like showing you someone's point of view. Mm-hmm. And she was talking about that same thing. She was like, here I am, like living the manifestations that I created for myself, but I'm still learning and expanding. And it was all that same energy. So I only share that as a point of connection because I'm like totally in that space where I'm like, oh, this is like a whole new frontier. And that's so rare that we get those opportunities, I feel like, in life. let me rephrase. It's very rare that we choose
Oh,
to
that's
happen.
it.
Right?
Yep. Because it can happen any day, every day we want to.
Yes.
It's all about evolution and revolution, but it seems like once we get here on Earth, we think that this one death, and we actually have many deaths. And it's like the old version, the 2019 version of me didn't make it to 2023, but here we are getting to know this version, and it's been an exciting journey.
I love this.
Because I get to do it through meeting other people.
Tell me more.
Like, I'm realizing that in this reading game, in this energy reading game, I'm able to meet myself and other people's bodies. So essentially, as we come here on Earth, we're all reflections of each other. But once we get this language, when we're children, we start to tap into all these disparities. Like, something's wrong, we're not this, we're not that. And we start to lose the fact that we're whole, perfect, and complete. So I was taught that in my teenage years, that human beings are whole, perfect, and complete. And if we're able to get back to that place, we can do anything there. So I'm learning that the more work I do on myself is the more work that I get to do with others. So in this reading game, I've been able to sit across from my mother, my brother, my sister, my ex, old bosses, and be able to work through some old things that I thought I wouldn't get the chance to. So a lot of times people are looking for closure, but we have it right here. So I get to do it with other people. So a lot of times when it comes to readings, I keep my intention about empowering them through language. So I take what I'm hearing and I throw it back to them in an empowered context. So if I do that for myself, I can do it for others. But if I lack the grace for myself, then it's hard for me to give a clarity reading to anybody else, because then I'll be nitpicking them just like I would be doing for myself. So I'm learning to really give myself the same grace and mercy that I would give my client.
And that's our show. You guys, I mean, we could end it right there. You just gave us more insight and love, I feel like, in that than, I mean, some people spend their life trying to achieve. So I just want to point that out, of the gravity and the beauty of what you're sharing. And I completely agree, especially with this idea of, I was telling somebody recently, I was like, there's a lot of people who come to me for readings, and I do spiritual mentorships and things like that. And they're always like, well, I feel lost. I don't know who I am. And I'm like, tell me about the 5 closest people to you, and I'll tell you exactly who you are. That doesn't necessarily mean who you are at your core, right? It's the same idea that we're going through all these deaths and things like that. But like, let's shape up. Let's look out. What else is going around, right? Because they are our mirrors. And I feel like that's so much in, I gesture this way, everybody's America's favorite husband and producer, Alex Getlin, making sure that this all goes right. And in a marriage, it's like that. Like, the things that I get the most frustrated and they're the most challenging for me in my marriage, I'm like, oh, that's because those are the parts of myself that I don't like, or those are the parts of myself that are challenging, or those are the parts of myself that I was shamed into no longer believing, seeing, or, you know, or wanting to express. And I also think, totally different, but I also think that's why a lot of marriages or long-term relationships, friendships or otherwise, it doesn't have to be a marriage. I think we find that, like, well, that wasn't working, so I'm going to find somebody else. It's replaceable. It's replaceable. And it's like, you are going to keep meeting yourself with every single person you keep going to. So feel free to find somebody else, but you're just going to find yourself again.
That's true. And in an empowered context, that's exciting. But in a disempowered context, that's very scary. Because then some people can't sit with themselves, they can't sit in silence, or they're always around people, always in a relationship, not knowing that there's a relationship with self going on, whether they decide to have it be positive or not. But we get to choose the people we experience life with. It's like, how cool is it that I saw you, you saw me, we chose each other, and now we're going to move through life together because we like the way we operate. It's like, it's a choice.
Okay. Absolutely. And I just have to share, because I said that I wanted to say how we met. And then I want to take us back a little bit to this journey that you've been on that's gotten you to this new place of rediscovering David Stample, RMT.
Hey.
There we go. So I've always been very drawn to Phoenix and Dragon. I grew up here in East Cobb, and my mom would always bring me when we went to like a Unitarian church. I didn't fully understand I didn't understand spirit as now I feel it. Like, when I walk into the store, I feel spirit, right? My shoulders go down. I'm a little bit brighter, right? No matter what's going on. So now I can identify that as spirit, and I feel that in a lot of different places. So
every time I've come back to visit, so grew up here and then I was in Chicago and then I was in LA, and every time I would come back, I'm like, oh, I got to pop into Phoenix and Dragon. I got to, just mess around, whatever. Still was not, because I wasn't awake yet. I didn't know what I was connecting to. I just was like, oh, we'll go look at the pretty things they have, and it makes me feel good, right? And then in 2020, COVID, I don't know if you remember, and we were all at home. We couldn't go anywhere. And then slowly, once everything was opening and we could come in with masks, and I think there were schedules and things like that. So I started coming in because my husband and I were in LA. We're living in Hollywood, and I'm like, if the apocalypse happens, it's going to be in our front yard, so we're going to Atlanta. So we drove cross country. We were here all through 2020. And I started coming in fairly regularly, and at this point, I was on my spiritual journey, and I just felt it so real. I'm like, I don't know what this space is going to be or do or what's going to happen. But I was like, but I know I have to keep showing up. Fast forward a year and a half later, we finally moved back here. And then I started popping in a little bit here and there. And I'm going, I'm not finding it yet. But I'm okay, I keep going. And then one day I walk in and you're standing there and you just go, well, hello. And opened up to me. And immediately I was like, there he is. Not knowing and it was one of those where it was my soul was like, ding, you found the thing. It felt like a video game where it was like, oh, you found the next piece of the puzzle. And it was so real to me that I'm like, do not knock this stranger over with your energy, because he does not know you. He does not know this Phoenix and Dragon journey. So I was very pregnant, and pregnancy for me draws up, there's a lot of fear in your body, and it's hard and it's heavy. And I think almost upon meeting me, and you're like, well, how are you? And you gave me a hug. And I remember being like, oh, I just felt so safe. And so that was my first time meeting you. And I'm like, okay, don't be a creep. Okay, nice to meet you. Yeah, see you around. And then I went home and I found you on Instagram and started following you. And then you followed me back. We were kind of chatting. And then from there, we've just been able to have this friendship and a relationship. And this is the portion of the podcast when I just tell you everything that I like about you. And, but yeah, just that sacred energy. And I think it's so interesting now being able to do this, is such a kind of feather in the cap of this cycle of my journey, because the things that I'm opening up to doing and the things that I'm expanding on now, I'm like, oh, you've also given me the invitation to do it. So I just want you to know that, I guess, the gravity of that offering that you have offered me. So having you here, and I know where I was years from now, we'll meet up and we'll do something again, and we'll be like, dude, do you remember when we did that podcast at Phoenix and Dragon? Yeah. And that was the start of, Rachael, this spiritual speaker, and, and David Stample, the RMT.
Yeah. It's things are happening so quick, it seems. But are they really? It's we're here for a good time, not a long time. And moving forward, I want to be intentional. So when it comes to Phoenix and Dragon, I get to be an extension of the mission. So it's when I first stepped foot into Phoenix and Dragon, I got to meet the owner. And that ding went off for me. And it was almost like the owner was a mile marker for me to let me know that I was on the correct path. So I remember calling the shop when things weren't working out in another place, and they weren't really necessarily looking for a Reiki practitioner. But I was like, hey, I do readings too. And they're like, all right, well, come on in. So the very first day that I stepped foot in Phoenix and Dragon, it felt like home. And I've had this feeling before, but it was culinarily, you know what I'm saying? But this was different. So I remember I came in the first day, I did a reading, I did some Reiki with the owner, and it was game-changing for me, and it was impactful for her. And I remember that same day I did readings for 9 people back to back to back, 9 staff members. And I remember Spirit telling me, listen, these are going to be your teammates. So as you do these, let them know what Reiki is, have them experience Reiki. And then at the same time, I was learning how to do these readings. So, and I'm realizing as I was doing the readings how important it is to be intentional. Because then the word psychic gets flown around a lot. And it's I like to tap into the psychic abilities and then show people how to do that as well. So I'm realizing that my intention is to support people in tapping into their higher self and their inner healer. So with the owner's intentions being just that, that's how she created the store. So now I enjoy being an extension of that energy. So this is really my home. So anyone that comes into my home, we're opening our arms and giving them a warm welcome. And I'm realizing that I do that. As I do that, it gives everyone else opportunity to kind of lean into that as well. So it's really about leading by example rather than talking.
Yep. Yeah. And there's something so, it's hard. Well, let me rephrase. I am getting comfortable with showing up fully. Meaning I would use, if you asked me that 6 months ago, I'd be like, oh, I'm like well slept and I'm this. No. Showing up fully and being like, being comfortable to have like all of my gifts on display. Meaning like I can walk into a space and feel heart-centered and forward. I'll feel comfortable in the spaces that it's appropriate to hug people, to stay open, look them in the eye. Alex always teases me because if anybody has a name tag on, I'm going to use your name.
Yes.
What else is that for?
Yep.
For you? I'm
It's
pretty
true.
sure you
No,
know
it's
your
for
name.
us. It's for us.
You know, it's for us. Because people are always like, how did you? I was at Home Depot. I'm like, Judy, what aisle is like the washer? And she goes, tried to look at me like to see how we would know each other. And I'm like, no, it's just because you like, you know, you got a name tag on. And making that point of connection, because in my awakening where I was like, oh my gosh, everybody's not here for us to go, yeah, well, I don't do it that way. That's not the way that I do it. That's not why other people are here. Turns out we're all here to be able to go, here's the way that I do it.
Yep.
How do you do it?
Yep.
Right? And so when we can get so rooted into, like you said, our inner healer, our ability to be at the helm of our ship and feeling comfortable in that, then we're able to take on other people's life philosophies or experience the world and go into situations with people that view the world differently, even if that's triggering or frustrating, right? And I think that that's really also collectively what is like a major thing for us right now. And I'm like, I think the more places that I can go into with that same intention of I'm going to show up fully so that I can learn something, I can heal today, and maybe I can be a mirror for somebody else, is actually radical, although it shouldn't be. But it feels that way. Like, that's when I'm always like, oh my, could you imagine if like everybody was walking around like that? Yeah. I don't even have words to actually, like, if I actually conceptually am like, what would it be like for all of us to be able to walk around fully? And that doesn't mean lack of, because I get really tore up when people are like, world peace. And even when we talk about like the new earth, that's really big in you know, and I'm not discrediting any of this, but I'm like, I think sometimes when we're looking for something that's so far ahead, or this idea of world peace, it's like conflict still exists, right? We want to work, how can we go into conflict and be able to hear people and have conflict resolution?
There we go. And have a conversation.
Yes.
Because it's like world peace is possible within our own individual world.
Yes.
If we decide that we want to be a vessel of love and anyone we see, we're going to treat them the way that we would want them to treat us, that's when we realize and notice the God within ourselves. So then once we realize and notice the God within ourselves, we have to govern ourselves accordingly. We have to treat ourselves as others. We have to do unto others. And that's a lot of accountability and responsibility. So it's easy to be able to, hey, I'm going to the psychic to let me know, should I leave this man? When it's like you came in here and immediately the body language you had was like, you need to leave this man. Mm-hmm. But it's like, that's not necessarily what you wanted to hear, but let's speak to your higher self.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I think that's what we were talking about this a little bit before offline, where I was like, that's something a lot when people come to me with those bigger things. And I know they may not be in a place yet to hear themselves. Mm-hmm. Because that's what I'm always like, whether you like what I'm saying or not, you're going to leave this room and you're going to continue to go on and do your thing. And as somebody who has self-betrayed themselves so much that they were 25, 30 pounds underweight, not eating, drinking all the time, living with somebody that they should had no business being in a relationship with, and had completely lost myself. And I knew many times what it was that I needed to do. I heard that voice many times, but sometimes we get so far away, we don't know how to walk ourselves back. But I'll tell you this, there's not a reader in the world, there's not a psychic in the world, there's not a medium in the world, there's not a card in the world that is going to walk you from there to there. It's always going to be you. Now, there are those of us that have spiritual gifts or spiritual communities or religious community, whatever. There are people there that can help walk you there. But yeah, I mean, I think that is a big thing. I think certainly for both you and I, but I think most practitioners worth their salt to be like, let me be very clear about what we're doing here today.
Yeah, because then once you get clear, it's like then no one can come and make you into something that you're not. And it can easily happen in this spiritual wellness game because sometimes people are looking for others to do the heavy lifting for them. So it's like I'm realizing here we are a year into being here at the shop that I have to be super intentional.
Yeah.
Because now a manifestation of mine is that 99% of my clients are ready to participate in their healing.
I love that.
And as the months have gone on, I've been able to say that 99% of the time to my clients. And then now when that 1% comes in, we're not going to judge them and say that they're not ready to participate in their own healing. But they may be a little frustrated with what's said. But we're like, we're talking to your higher self now that understands that no one's going to save you or rescue you, but we're going to hold space. Because now I can act like we're going to do that, but it's acting, and I have to sleep at night.
Yeah.
I want to be able to sleep wholly and peacefully, knowing that I did what my spirit team and what my conscience knows is the right thing to do. And I'm saying right because the thing is, to me, what seems to be right might not be what they're looking for. So then they can say it's wrong and ask for a refund.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, what is the intention for this reading?
Yeah.
So where the intention is clarity and wellness and moving through, great. If you like to move around the situation rather than go through it, I can kind of support you, but it's like there's a difference between the help and the support. Yeah. And I rather support and empower someone rather than help them stay somewhere that is no longer the space for them.
Totally. Well, and you already said it so beautifully, but it is that where it's like, if somebody's already showing up, there is a part of them, even if it's saying, should I leave this marriage? And they already know that. There's still the higher part of them that has gotten them into the room.
There we go.
Even if they have only been able to get to that level of the video game and they keep going back and they keep going back and they can't get there yet. It's like, I have to remember to when I have like my earthly judgment, as I would say, where it's like, it's easy for me to be like, oh, well, how many more times are we going to do? Right. And then it's also going, because I'm a human. And then there's the other side of it too, where it's like, and also how many times are they? Good for them that they're going to keep coming back and keep coming back, because eventually they are going to get to that place. Hopefully in this lifetime, if they decide I want more. And I think that's so much of what like my mission is in instilling people, which is like the things that are the most unique to you, the things that are going to bring you the most peace and thus the most healing to you, your community, and the world are probably the parts of you that are covered up by shame. Because they were the parts of you that did make you feel whole and perfect. What was your three? You had three.
Whole, perfect, and complete.
There you go. Yeah. Whole, perfect, and complete. And those are probably the things that got knocked out of you because, especially by other adults, there are energies that exist within all of us that when other people are beyond, other people feel free, other people feel joy, other people feel expansion, they don't like that. They don't like that. It's threatening, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what gets covered up by our shame. And the more that I've been uncovering that, and I'm like, that was somebody else's truth. That was somebody else's ideal. And it's aggressive, and it feels so real that it kept me covered up for a really long time. But what we were talking about at the beginning, where it's like every day is a choice, and every day we get to choose, what is it that we want to do today? How much do I want to expand? Do I want to? Am I ready? Do I feel safe? And I think that's so much of like where I'm like a comedian and an intuitive, and people are like, how does that work? I'm like, what do you mean? One of the most intuitive things for us is to laugh. It's a point of connection. It's a point of recognition. If I can say something and I get you to laugh, that means you go, I know that experience. I know that reality. And that to me, that's collective healing. That's going, we all know. So if I draw a crowd and you look around and there may be people who don't necessarily look like you, or they drive a different car than you, or this or that, but you all sit down and you're all facing one way, and I can get that beach ball up in the air, that laughter over and over and over again, we all shared something together. And so it's like, that's also the way that I'm sharing this as a point of connection, because I love where you're like, I want to empower people and their healing, and I want to be able to do that. And I also want to bring levity to it. Because when we are in those places, when I was in that place in 2018 where I woke up and I was like, I'm not going to drink anymore, I'm going to do this differently, and I'm sleeping on the couch in a house that, you know, I thought was going to be like this house, and I was going to build this big relationship, even though I knew, you know, that's a part of my comedy where I'm like, you know, you always know. We always know.
Always.
That's why when you've come to me. And so I can go back to that space, and I can remember that energy, and I can remember how much space I needed to be held for me and how many steps I was going to have. So when people come in and they want that, you know, that love potion number 9, they want that thing that's going to change their life. It's like, I want to encourage them of like, there's so many more steps to go. So you don't need to feel overwhelmed. You don't need to feel like you got to solve it today. Yeah. So even if today is just going back into your marriage and making dinner for the person you're trying to leave because that's as far as you can get today, that's okay. That's okay. It's that mindfulness and that awareness that it's step by step by step that's going to get us to the other side. No sudden moves.
That was the moment about 3 minutes ago when you talked about comedy and spirit. That was the moment. Like, I feel like that was like a snippet, like a 15, 20, 30-second snippet.
Clip it.
Yeah, no,
Clip
like
it.
I wanted to say it sooner, but you just kept on going. But that was good because it really encompassed everything. And it's like, so with me, when it comes to being an esoteric chef, like Miss Candace likes to say, it's like esoteric is like almost like untouched or almost could be taboo or things that people aren't typically aware of. So it could be anything. Mm-hmm. So the fact that it's healing energy is always exciting. And it's like, okay, well, what does the esoteric chef really look like? And I'm able to explore that. So we have the taco nights and we have the hot cocoa happy hours, and we're able to do things without food as well, but I'm still the chef at heart. And using food as the medium is what I've been doing until now, using Reiki as a way to connect people. And it's exciting because you use comedy to do that.
Yeah.
And it's healing because then people have that instant connection, like you said. They're like, wow, I've experienced that. We're on the same page. I know them. And we're able to do that now with healing energy as well.
Well, when we talk about energies and we talk about frequencies, there's a lot of these, I think I've always found, and maybe this is still some of my own judgment towards it, but like the language of spirituality is a lot of times a block for people. They can't get over the idea of like, you know, it's like, yeah, I've got a job at like Bank of America, I drive a nice car, I can't get over the idea of like, I'm going to manifest something, right? Or this idea of like, even the word intention, or there's a lot of these words around these like, spirit guides, even higher self, that if that's the thing that you can't get over, great, then we're going to use different language. Yeah. We're going to use food. We're going to use comedy.
There we go.
Because, you know, you talked about God existing within you. And I always say that, you know, I'm like, the God in me sees the God in you. And so it's like the idea that spirituality or healing can only happen in certain spaces and rooms is something that I'm really working to deconstruct. That's also what's kept us from our healing. Because if we decide that it only can be done in a church, or it can only be done in a synagogue, or it can only be done in a temple, or it can only, you know, all of these places, or it can only be done in a healing or a reading, or like I've got to go and get 6 Reiki sessions, or I'm never going to, like, when we make it a thing to do rather than a place of being, we've already fucked ourselves.
Message.
We've already stopped ourselves from being, you like that?
No, yeah.
To be able to move through that. And so I love so much, and that's that, you know, the esoteric chef, and that was your first medium. And I'm interested to hear from you. Like, I find I'm having almost this new renaissance with my comedy, because it's the only thing I've ever done, comedian, actor, all the things. And then after spiritual waking and allowing these gifts to rise to the surface that have always been there. It wasn't like I woke up and I'm like, oh, what are these? Mm-hmm. They've always been here. That's what the booze was for. Do you understand? And so it drowns it out. It drowns it out. You can't hear your intuition. And so you can't make choices in service of yourself.
Understandable.
You know?
Yeah.
And so now that I feel like I've allowed both of these gifts and ways of creating healing and space for people that have risen up on like the same level, I'm so much more excited to like take to the stage, because I'm like, oh, this is what the intention is. I may be offering you this joke, this joke, this joke, but the intention is connection. The intention is that hopefully you're going to leave and you're going, man, she was really funny. But also, what about that thing that she said about red flags? Like, I feel like that's me, or I feel like that's right. Like that's the point of intention. So I want to hear that, because I know this episode is dubbed From the Food Network to Soul Food. So I really wanted to hear a little bit of what was that journey like for you. The listeners know, a lot of my story, but what has been your journey of how much or how little you want to share about finding this awakening. So finding yourself from what is this one dream that's going only in one lane, if I'm hearing you correctly, and then allowing it to be like, whoa, it's actually so much more, and moving yourself into this space.
So for me, I've always wanted to cook. I watched my family cook. I watched my mother, my father. My mother's Jamaican. My father's from North Carolina. So I decided as a culinarian, I wanted to do Southern Caribbean fusion. So I took Southern food and Caribbean food and brought the flavors together. And I was doing that for some time. And I realized that I wanted to give back to the community. So I was a culinary philanthropist. So anything that I did culinarily always had a give back component. So I worked at supportive housing units in New York. I worked at a yeshiva in Brooklyn. I've done middle schools, high schools, and then I moved to New York and started doing like more boutique cooking classes and things like that. But we always had the give back component. And I hated school, actually. I hated school. Like, I didn't want to do the test. I didn't really know how to study. I tried, and I kind of just muddled through the experience. So when I finally graduated high school, I took a year off, and I found a vocational program. I went to Sheridan Technical Center in Hollywood, and I was there. I did their, 2-year program, and there was a chef. His name was Otis Herring, and he was a very accomplished chef, and I guess it was towards the end of his career, and he decided he wanted to be a teacher. And he taught, and he was a very tall guy like me, tall black gentleman like me, and very aggressive. And it was always such a whimsical experience now that I'm looking at it. Hey, it was always a whimsical experience now looking back on it, but it didn't feel whimsical at the time. But the best story I have to share about him is one day, me and my classmate were making pancakes on the griddle. We had made the mix, and we got to the griddle, and I let the gentleman pour the oil on the griddle. And Chef Herring was watching us from across the room, and he came up to the griddle, and he put his hand on the hot griddle, and he wiped it up. He said, all this oil. He said, y'all should not be making any pancakes. Y'all need to read about making pancakes. And I felt so, not hurt, but I was like, damn, I guess he's right. And then this other chef, his Caucasian counterpart came and apologized. He was like, you know what, I'm really sorry about what Chef Otis did. But I'm like, yo, you're the teacher of this class, and we really shouldn't have been here at this griddle, not knowing what we're doing, and you should have done what he did. So during this course that I was taking, I really took to both of these chefs because they both had their own way of doing things. And I'm like, wow, Chef Mike is a vibe, but he can be a little timid. And Chef Otis should maybe take a couple steps back.
They were balanced energies.
They really were. Yeah. Now that I'm talking to you, I'm realizing, wow. So through the course, I volunteered a lot. And there was a particular volunteer opportunity that came up to work at South Beach Wine and Food Festival, which the Food Network threw, and they did it every year. And I was a part of this organization, culinary organization, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to participate in this event. And it was called Fun and Fit as a Family, and there were all these celebrity chefs, and they needed a crew to work at the back of a house or whatever. So I took it seriously. I got my whole schedule. I did a meeting beforehand. I made a packet. Everyone got their packet, and we did this function. And one of the people that were at the function was Rachael Ray. So I remember I took my sister back to go eat something at a particular time. And when we got back there, I saw Rachael Ray with this man. And all of a sudden, I'm like introducing Rachael Ray to my sister. I'm like, hey, Rachael Ray, this is my sister, and I'm David, and I'm here doing this and that. And she's like, wow, that's so cool. Congratulations. And this man was with her, and he gave me a card out of nowhere. So I took the card, and I finished up culinary school, and I did more volunteering throughout that year, and I decided the festival was coming up again, and it was coming up in New York. So I called this man to give me the card, and I said, hey, you know, it was like 2 years. I said, hey, you know, he said, oh, this is David. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I remember you. I gave you my card, da-da-da-da-da. He said, well, you know, I organize these food and wine festivals, and we would love to have you on our team. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm available. I can come to New York. He said, all right, well, I'm going to send you an email, and when I send the email, let me know if what we send you is a good fit. I'm like, all right. So I get this email, and it was like, we would like for you to be the culinary manager for Rachael Ray's Burger Bash. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? So I went, and I wasn't sure what I was doing. But my uncle Hector, may his soul rest in peace, let us know that luck does not exist. Luck is when opportunity meets preparedness. So I got my ticket, got my flight, told my Aunt Barbara, hey, I need to stay at the place. And she's like, okay. And I went, and I was a culinary manager for Rachael Ray's Burger Bash for 4 of them in Miami and 3 of them in New York.
Wow.
And it was such a magnificent experience because I learned how to create a Wana Food Festival from the ground up. Like literally in sand for South Beach and in a parking lot in New York. But not only did I have this experience of doing that, but I got to meet a lot of amazing people. And now realizing in retrospect, all these people were my reflections. So I got to hang out with Rachael Ray, got to dance with Chrissy Teigen, got to BS with Robert Irvine, all of them. But it wasn't really fulfilling. It wasn't. And then now, through doing these festivals, I would have to take time off of work, like whatever job I was at. And they didn't love it. They didn't love that I was doing this stuff. So I had to find it in myself to say, you know what? I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to go. So through doing these festivals, one day Rachael Ray's team was like, yo, we would love to feature you on the Yellow website. So here we are 14 years later, and that bio on that website has supported me in such a way. It's been like a resume. Because it's like, yo, Rachael Ray is like, yeah. But the time that I've gotten to speak with her, she's like, yo, David, whatever it is you want to do it. And then as you do it, the people that can help you will come and help you. But if you're waiting for people to come to do it, you'll never get it done. So it's like, that was like game changing for me because I'm like, yo, it seems like that's what she did. So then now we do festival after festival. Now we have a Getty image on the internet that you can see for the rest of it. And it's like, oh, I got one with Bon Jovi as well. And it's like doing these food festivals, I've been able to see, wow, we put these celebrities on these pedestals and they're just like us. You know what I'm saying? They're just like us. So that like we get to see that, wow, we're the celebrities. Growing up, my mother used to always try to figure out, how do I get to the front of everything? Like any function we go to, I'm at the front. I'm meeting whoever it is. I'm shaking their hand. I'm taking a picture. And my mother's like, how did it happen? But now becoming an adult and then doing that kind of work, it all made sense. I love to share this story. One day we were at the mall. And we lived in Broward. And Aventura Mall is a pretty big mall in Miami, but we were at the mall and we were hanging out, me, my brother, and my sister, and all of a sudden we see security at all these doors. We're like, something's going on. So we decided to go close to whatever the main door was, and we see this gentleman, infamous, long black hair, the red button up and the black pants. It was Michael Jackson. So we're at the mall and Michael Jackson shows up, and we met him. So we met him initially when he came in. We got to shake his hand. We got to hug him. We saw the veins all in his hands. He looked right through our souls, but he was so compassionate and empathetic amongst this chaos. 5 minutes in, the whole mall got shut down. But it's like there are no coincidences. There are none. And this week, something kind of came full circle twice, where it's like, wow, there are no coincidences. So then if we allow these magical things to happen and not get scared and fearful when we see a lot of security, we can let things happen, let the magic unfold. So that particular instance when I was younger was so exciting because I've always had, I don't even say I'm a huge fan, but I'm so inspired by Michael Jackson. Like the way he was and the way he carried himself and the narrative that they tried to create for us to believe. And we could take him as an example of how we live our own lives. And we can let people create this narrative for us, or we could stand up in the love and the compassion. And it's like, that's what I saw that he did. And it was also a mile marker. So wow. So I'm comparing that experience to me sitting with Miss Candace right out there in the garden. Like, wow, this is a mile marker that things are working the way that they should be working, not the way that I want them to. So as we do this work and as I get out of the festival stuff, I use all those things as leverage. And I was applying for shows because I wanted to be on Food Network so bad. So I'm applying for the shows, and as a young child...
You are a wonderful television personality, by the way.
Well, thank you.
Just like this like soulful voice, tall stature, like, oh yeah, this, I mean, I've worked in television for a long time, as you can tell. So like the casting part of me is like, oh yeah, move this man to the front of the line. Let's go.
Oh, so thank you for that.
Of course.
So As a child, I loved Supermarket Sweep. Like, I loved it. I loved all the games and everything that they played. So, lo and behold, I applied to Guys Grocery Games, and we go through the application process for about 5-6 months. They weren't sure what episode they wanted me on, maybe this one, maybe that one, maybe this one. And then they finally decided, and I had to fly, you know, it goes immediately. All of a sudden, I had to go in like 4 or 5 days. And when I got there, immediately, I was uncomfortable. And I remember, because they take you to Hollywood or whatever. So they put you in the little swanky stuff and make you feel like all this excitement. And I remember I got up at 5:30 in the morning because the call time was early. And I sat down in the bathroom and I called my mom and I'm like, yo, this is happening. And it doesn't feel the way that I thought. But whatever, they picked us up in the car, they took us to the set, we got ready, we started. It ended up being a Budget Bonanza episode, which is really cool because they allowed me to be exactly who I am. I got to be on there as culinary philanthropist. I got to share about Ruby's Place, which is in Brooklyn, where we had formerly homeless people living. And I was the chef and culinary instructor for them, and I took them on trips and everything, so I got to highlight the shop. So we filmed the episode in October. And it didn't air until January. So I had October, November, December, January to stew. Well, it aired in February, to stew about what they were going to see. So I was in angst. I was unsure. I was uncertain. Oh, shoot. I was uncertain to the point where I found a reflection to manifest all that stuff. And I fell in love. So I thought. And that love showed me everything, all the uncertainty, all the doubt, cup half empty, all of that. It really showed me all the uncertainty that was manifesting within myself. So now when the episode finally comes out in February, I'm with my partner. And they're crying because they can't wrap their head around what they're seeing. And I'm like, wow, that is me. It was so refreshing. Like, they didn't mix it up too much. They didn't chop it up too much. Like, I really recognized myself. And I'm like, wow, I was tripping for no reason. Throughout the experience on set, I burnt myself. I was sweating the whole time. And then I'm realizing in retrospect that they set it up for me to win. Production set it up for me to win. They had my booth right next to the judges so I can hear everything that was being said. Guy Fieri brought me pots and pans to use. Like, they set it up for me to win, but it wasn't designed for me to win. It didn't matter. The competition did not matter to me. So we're there, whatever. I got through the first 2 rounds.
Wait, I can't move on without addressing that.
Yeah.
Because when you say they set it up for me to win.
Yeah.
I feel like the universe does that for us so often, but we're not clocking that we are in this situation.
There we go.
That if we take advantage of being next to the judge's booth, getting like the pots and pans, having that, like when we are not tapped into going, this is it, then that's what happens. And then that's what we were talking about earlier before we started, where somebody's going, well, I want this to happen, I want this to happen, I want this to happen. And the universe is going, okay. And then they're going, I want this to happen. And the universe is going, okay. And then we're still not seeing what's there because we've decided. I'm not saying this is what your example is, but just using that where I was like, I that's such a potent lesson. And I feel like I'm even beginning to see that in my own life where it's like, you want it, go get it. It's all there.
That's it.
And you have to decide, I mean, for food, what are you going to make out of it? You know what I mean?
No,
Direct to
really and
camera.
truly.
Yeah.
But one thing that I did not do during that whole experience is take one deep breath. Not one deep breath did I take and say, I just went. So then when God brought the pans, like, I got to use them. And then now we got through the first round because the other lady, the lady was a filler.
Yeah.
She was a filler. Yep. And she went home first because she didn't understand the concept of a lumberjack breakfast. So she made a hearty breakfast, but it was like of tofu and things. So American people wouldn't think that it was.
Yeah.
But I put my breakfast on a piece of wood because it was a lumberjack breakfast. You know, but when I did it, my pancakes were burnt. So because she made a baby breakfast, the burnt pancakes slid through to the second round.
Yep.
So they weren't going to film the third round until Monday. So I was like, listen, I did not mind going home during the second round because I wasn't going to stew Saturday and Sunday in this hotel about what Monday's going to be. So the second round comes and it's a budget lunch. So there was a budget. We run through the grocery store and they had pork on sale. I didn't really want to use it, but it was a gimmick, so I had to use it because I didn't have enough money. I made the sandwich and we made like a jerk situation. We made what we made at Ruby's place, actually.
Okay.
I made like Brussels sprouts, black eyed peas salsa. Guy was eating it up, enjoying it. But I wasn't listening. Yeah. Like, I was like, they said go one way, I went another. Like, it wasn't the right fit for me. And I realized I don't love to compete. So we get through this second round, we go to the judging table, and we give them everything. And all of a sudden, I see the makeup people coming up to me. I'm like, okay. We know what's going to happen. We know we about to go home. So I decided to be prepared. So then they told me that I was going home now because my sandwich was dry and it needed some mayonnaise. So if it wasn't one thing, or something else.
Yeah.
So I said, all right. So then they just said, we're going to do Henkel's, that we'd like to give $1,000 to Ruby's place. So I was like, wow, thank you so much. You know what? This experience is so much bigger than me. So thank you so much. And then, yeah, so I went home after that round. We did the whole confessional thing, you know what I'm saying? And then I had to wait 3 months. So I go home, I meet this partner, and we're doing whatever. But when the episode came up, like I said, I recognized myself. I never got the money, the $1,000 that they said they were going to give, but I didn't want it because it didn't seem like it was coming from a place that resonated with me. Like, the way I felt there, I've never felt again in my life. So like if a casting agent was to call me and ask me to compete, I would say no, thank you. But if they wanted me to just showcase who I am, I would love that. But I'm realizing that people get to these experiences and then now, because they want what they feel is on the other side so bad, they start to acquiesce to whoever and whatever they need. And luckily I was able to be myself. But the gentleman that won that episode, I'm pretty sure he went through the same paperwork as I did, background check after background check, paperwork after paperwork. But he was on the budget episode with me, and he had a single mother, and, you know, he went through a lot. He got on the second episode. We tried to build a rapport, and it was all right. So then now when the pandemic happened and all the Black Lives Matter started happening and the Me Too stuff started happening, I got some DMs, and they're like, yo, this gentleman, I'm trying not to say his name, was abusing women, pregnant women in Detroit before he got on the episode with me and before he got on the second and third episode. So it really blew my mind that out of all this paperwork and all these things going on, that something like that could slip through. But the ladies were able to use him calling himself a celebrity chef as leverage to get their justice. So then now, if you look online, you'll never find this episode that we're talking about. And I had to sit with it. And I had to really get the magnitude of what all that was. It was a opportunity for light and dark to do its thing all over again. Because something, I had to be there. I wasn't gonna have it any other way. I wasn't gonna stop until I had that experience. And then universe, spirit said, listen, there's gonna be this person there, that person there, that person there. And I could have won had I decided to take a deep breath, maybe. But what would it have meant to me? So now I believe these ladies got justice, and he has to live with that. That his character and who he really is, or the perception that people have, he has to be responsible because of what he did. So the episode not being on TV anymore isn't that detrimental. It's like, wow, so this is how the world is? This is what has to happen in the workplaces. So we go to workplaces and things aren't happening the way that we want to, and we're saying something and they're like, yeah, no, we already know it's not going on. We already know that's not happening, but keep it low, keep it chill. So what I'm really saying, sis, is I've been a whistleblower most of my life, and I didn't realize that's what it was. So working in this middle school, my teenagers, I have 13-year-olds smoking cigarettes outside of my door. And I'm like, yo, something's got to give. And they're like, yeah, well, it's been happening for years, so it's going to be you.
Yeah.
And again, that it happened over and over and over again, going to food banks and realizing they're missing hundreds of thousands of dollars and they're rotten food. And it's like, wow. So all this disparity. Oh, and then realizing that this hunger situation, a lot of things are, I don't want to say scarcity mindset, but they're matrix driven. So I used to do a lot of work for Share Strength, No Kid Hungry, and I would do a lot of events for them as well. A lot of food and wine festivals, a lot of activations, things like that. And one day they called me, sis, and they were like, yo, David, we have an opportunity for you. I said, what is it? They're like, we would like to send you on a private jet with Bobby Flay to the Kentucky Derby for the weekend, recognizing you as our hunger hero. I'm like, this is the opportunity that I can have to really let them know what's going on with my students and what's happening. I brought the partner that I manifested with me on the plane, and we argued at Churchill's Downs. We missed the majority of the excitement. But Bobby was a vibe. It was very exciting to be on the private jet. No, and it was. And they did this whole thing in the middle of right before the race, like this whole, like a 30-minute vignette, 30-second vignette of the experience. It was cool. So I'm like, wow, this will do it. We can do it. We can really, and it never happened. So they have this conversion where for every $1 they can donate 5 meals. You and I know it's a crock of shit. Mm-hmm. But here I am now at one of their functions that I helped them activate, and I watched them raise $10 million in 15 minutes. I'm like, this can do it. This can end the hunger.
We're finally going to do it.
Yeah,
we're going to end it tonight.
Yeah, with the $10 million, yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
And I realized, wow, no, because they want me to do another one in another city. Mm-hmm. Got it. Mm-hmm. So then you realize that if I continue to follow this on social media and I continue to watch what they're doing, it brings more of it into my life. So what I decided to do was shift the hunger game in my life. So when I do functions and I want to do events, I make sure I don't buy too much food. I make sure that I'm not wasting anything. I'm making sure that I'm giving the leftovers to the gentleman that's on the street. Mm-hmm. I'm making sure that we're doing things compassionately with the food. So when I was realizing that that wasn't happening at this drop-in center, there was a drop-in center for gay youth I used to work at in New York and Manhattan, and I was so proud to be there because I'm like, yo, I get it. And I was so excited about cooking meals for them, and I was there supporting someone on their maternity leave. So I was only there for a season. But I saw all the disparity while I was there. And I saw the same people coming day to day, young teenagers coming day to day. And I was cooking, and something came up, and I was just emotionally overwhelmed, and I whistle blew again. And, oh my gosh, just like the day how it's a week before Thanksgiving, they let me go. And I had a big plan to make all this Thanksgiving meal. Who's going to make the Thanksgiving for them, for the people? They didn't care. They let me go. And I had to realize, yo, this is not personal. Mm-hmm. And if I decide to take it personal, then it's going to shift who I am. So it's really interesting because now here we are 4 years later, and one of the participants, one of the people that came to get meals consistently was on tour with Beyonce.
Nice. And
on stage, twirling like it was his birthright. And it's like, what an experience to come from, quote unquote, that. Because they like to say inner city. It's like Manhattan is an inner city. Yeah. Regardless of where you are. But it's like, are we treating them like anybody else? That anything is possible? Because he was dancing there. He was dancing there. Yeah. But it's like, did you all believe that this is possible coming from this space? I did.
But you hit that on the head. So, as quick as I can make it. So my mom grew up in the inner city, grew up very poor. It's a lot of her story that she shares, so don't feel like I'm spilling tea where it's inappropriate. And she has worked with like all sorts of youth and all the things. Now she has like 7 degrees and all of this stuff. And so, she's like the head of the psych nursing department at Case Western University and all these things, all these accolades, right? And then so people always love for her to come and talk at all these nonprofits and all these things. They want to give her awards and they're like, and same thing, but then they're not doing what they said. And that's always what my mom is like. She ran a community paint shop in the neighborhood. It was like a lower income neighborhood. And where when she was open, you're welcome to come in. You don't have to pay anything. You can paint. You can hang out. There's stuff for kids, and you can play. The only thing is that she asks that you give back to the community in whatever way that. I think she has some cute little thing. It's like with your time, your energy, or something like that. Yeah. But that's her thing, where she was like, when we do not instill value in people, then we're not, like, she was like, you're not going to show up if you're going to donate here. I don't want scraps. I don't want people in this neighborhood. They need things that are of value. Like, that's what we're doing. She was like, don't bring me a bunch of dirty clothes. You need to wash them. You need to put them on hangers, and then you can leave them here. But she's like, why people trust us to come in this space, why we're holding space for people and helping them is because we see them and we let them know that they're of value.
That's it.
And I feel like the whistleblowing that you're talking about, it's interesting because I'm like, that's often what I feel that we even do with this work in general. Like, I won't speak for you, but for me, like, comedy is even that. Like, hey, you know how we've all been, like, having the same experience? Isn't this experience actually this? Like, it's just showing us, it's reframing. It's showing us what's really happening. And I feel like spiritual work, whether we're doing, like, a big group thing or you're doing, like, a one-on-one, it's a lot of times it is that. It's going, so you maybe came in for this thing, but here's what maybe is really going on, right? And obviously we talked about that at the beginning, that we'll expose and have those conversations in the way that is appropriate and is creating empowerment for somebody. But that's ultimately what we're doing, because that's what we have to do on ourselves all the time to stay accountable to those things. Because a lot of the things that, as I would define it, keep us the most sick or keep us in those patterns where we're doing things and we're not really getting to the heart of what it is, are so tricky and so below the surface that it takes that whistleblowing and going, hey, you're not really doing the shit that you say you're doing, you know? Like, are you really going in? Are you really putting in the effort? Are you really doing the work? Or are you just in the room?
Yeah, and I'm realizing when it's, I guess, not necessarily acceptable, but when it's okay to say, you know what, this is something that we should note. And I'm finding that that's not fun in day-to-day life, but if you're coming for a session, and it's like, yeah, I do want to note these things. So it's almost like being able to know when you're in the profession and when you're trying to build relationship and friendship. So that you're not intertwining the two. But you're allowing your intuition and your discernment to tap in, so you're not into no crap with them eventually because you saw it coming. So it's just like when people come in for readings and they're like, hey, should I do this? Should I do that? And my spirit is like, yo, David, they know all the answers. And they're prepared to hear that they know all the answers. So let them know that they know all the answers and talk them through it so that they can say everything. Like, and then I'm like, lately I've been shocked with the awareness that people have. I'm like, yo, did you hear yourself? Let me tell you what you just said. And like, wow, I guess. And then now we get into this thing called Reiki reading, where it's like, wow, I feel better, and you didn't even put your hands on me. It's like we were healing through language. So that's why it's important to have these conversations with our parents and our siblings and our friends to get clarity, so that we're not thinking that this is what it was or that's what it is. Like, yo, this is where I was, and this is how I was feeling. Just like in relationships, when we get triggered, we can choose to get upset or to get in conversation. Because in my relationship, we were in, it was upset. We were upset. And compromise for them was someone had to have the shit under the stick. It wasn't that we could both be happy. It was like, no, you do your thing. And I'll just, It's like, I didn't grow up that way. And I'm realizing that I'm here trying to shift someone's perspective of the world when I'm not even anchoring myself in mine. And now I lose everything and I want to blame you, but it was me. So here we are 4 or 5 years later, and I'm realizing it had to happen. It had to happen the way it did, and I could have chose to stick with that narrative. I could have chose to continue to get upset at everyone and blame and fault everyone and continue to whistleblow and find disparities in everything. Or I could shift the narrative and be like, yo, I get to have this insight. I get to see what everyone doesn't see. I get to hear and feel what everyone doesn't get to hear and feel. And it's not that they don't get to feel it or hear it or see it. They're choosing to not. And for me, it's like, what a gift it is to be alive and to be one of one. So that as I meet people and they may want to come for a session to get fixed and feel broken, but I'm like, yo, we coming from a whole perfect and complete place because it makes it easier for me because we don't have anything to break and fix. But what we will do is hold space for you. And that's what I love about Reiki.
Yeah.
Reiki, spiritually guided energy that flows through our hands and gives the body the opportunity to get into a space of relaxation so the healing mechanisms that are already within can start working for themselves. So it's like literally being a conduit for love and healing energy to flow. So when people come in for a session, we definitely set an intention, but the Reiki is going to go exactly where it needs to go. So a lot of times we'll see people hovering and doing Reiki. It's because sometimes it's not physical stuff. And it's in the aura, and it's mental, it's spiritual, it's more than what can meet the eye. So it's like when I explain or tell people what Reiki is, I say just what I said, and they'll say how. And it's like we don't really question it when it comes to the lights, but we're grateful that it came on. So it's the same thing with Reiki. So I love when people come for Reiki sessions because if you come for enough, I'm going to say, hey, let's get you attuned. So that you can tap in and say, yo, this energy that I'm sharing with you is already a part of you. It's just that when you're with me, you get to relax and chill. And that makes a difference. So that's why we got to find partners and relationships and workspaces where we can relax and chill.
Well, amen to that.
Yeah.
I feel like I was so attracted when you were describing Reiki, and it's like people want to, this is another thing where I was talking about where like sometimes the language is the thing that's like blocking people from having spiritual experiences or, you know, whatever, like feeling into the Holy Spirit. Like I talk about that. I always do like a body, mind, and soul workshop at the top of every year. And I always talk about that. I'm like, I want you to make a list of the places that you feel like you find spirit. Because everyone's like, you got to meditate every day and you got to go to get yoga and you got to do. And I'm like, once it becomes a list, again, we're off track. We want it to be a part of integrating into your life. What are the things that you feel so you can feel as though you're walking through this life connected to spirit? That's what we want, right? Because it's like, it's the, you know, it's body, mind, and soul. Like we want those to be a conduit that are all working together because it's just going to get you to the front of the line faster, whatever that means. It's going to get you to the place that you want to be. But I loved what you shared where you're like, I had to go through those things and now I know it was just all information. The things that worked, the things that didn't, right?
Yeah, because then now, when I first, early on when I started, a really, 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 really cool culinary opportunity came up. Remember, Miss Candy? A really cool culinary opportunity came up to do some production for a gentleman's family that had a dream. And you remember, Miss Candace? You don't remember? I just hit the thing is I had just started.
Okay.
And I was still having this zest for the culinary stuff. And the opportunity was for me to be on a production staff for this show, for the family, It sounded great. But then I'm like, yo, Miss Candace, I really want to do this. And I feel like me being on set, regardless of how cool and calm and chill I am, they're going to want a hectic environment. Like, you know what I'm saying? No matter how much I prep, no matter how much it's going to have to be a hectic environment. And I'm like, I don't want that. So I spoke to the lady, and she's like, well, we're going to do a practice run, and da-da-da-da. And the practice run was going to be chaotic. And I'm like, yo, I talked to Miss Candace again. I'm like, yo, I think I need to not do this. And she came to go do the practice run. I said, listen, miss, thank you so much for coming, but I'm not going to be able to take this opportunity. She easily said, okay, and moved on.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? But I could have made a big deal out of it. And then the very next day that I would have been gone to do this thing, some magic happened with the clients and needed to be at the right place at the right time. So it's like if we're able to really listen to our intuition rather than what people tell us we should do and what people think would look great if we did it, then we'll be led to opportunities like this.
Or even the thing, well, I want to let that land for a
Yeah, no, opportunities like this where I get to show up as me
Yes.
with someone that's doing the same.
Yes.
And we could just be vessels of love and edutainment.
Thank you.
Yep. And not feel like we're trying to rescue or save anyone.
Well, that and amazing things can be done without chaos. That's my biggest thing. That's why I left Hollywood. I was like, I am done with like, you have to be ready at this time and you've got, that's why Alex was laughing, weren't you? Because it's the chaos of like, I think it makes people feel that it's more important.
Ooh.
There's this sense of like, because it's hard, or there's this urgency that we're doing something magical.
Oh.
And I remember working in production offices and everybody's running around like crazy people. And I'm going, I feel like we could solve this in an hour with a cup of coffee. Everybody, like, what are we doing? There's so many people in this room right now and nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. Then we should all go home. We shouldn't be making this television show if it's this fucking hard.
But it's a vibe.
Yes. And I think that there's something, this will take us on a different route, but there's like a lot of things about that, right? That masculine energy of like, if we make it hard, or like, then it's like only the tough survive. And I'm like, friends, we live in 2023, okay? Things are already hard, and also you can be soft and survive. So take advantage of, like, you know, the modern world. Like, we've got to let that shit die. And I just, you know what, I was sharing with you guys my big vision for Channel 18, which is my production company, and I want to do all conscious entertainment, and I'm going to make TV, and we're going to do it all, and we're going to do it my way. We're going to do it our way.
That's it.
You know, it's like, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do it so that it's like, we can make amazing things. We can make cooking shows. We can do all of this stuff. And we can do it in a way that is in flow. We can work together. It's still going to get out on time. It's going to come in on budget. And we don't all have to run around like chickens with their heads cut off. It just doesn't make any sense.
When I used to do the food and wine festivals, they would have culinary students come and they would create that chaos because that's what they saw. So I'm like, yo, my events don't operate that way. Like, I communicate in my events. I make sure everyone has paperwork. I make sure everyone feels seen. I make sure everyone knows what they need to have. And I make sure everyone feels comfortable so then I can feel comfortable.
Yes.
But I would watch them come and bring the crazy vibes because that's what they felt it had to be.
Yep.
And it's like, we get to create our own narrative.
Yep.
So I'm in this soft life, slow life, easy breezy period, balance, and figuring out what that looks like for me.
Yep.
So it's like, people want this to be preaching, but we're practicing.
Yeah.
Like, we're practicing what is we're saying. So as I do these readings, and the more that I do, I'm realizing, wow, like, write that down, David. Catch that. That's for you too, David. So readers out there, if you ever feel like the person in front of you is not your reflection, that's time for you to do some work. Because literally our mothers, our fathers, our sisters, our boss are all reflections of us, but we choose to just connect to the positive things. So then when we realize, yo, there is some negative things within us, that's when we learn grace. And then now we can have grace for other people that are quote unquote annoying or quote unquote erratic or whatever it is. It's like my best friend was talking about what are some things that you feel like are negative. I'm like, I could be impulsive, but I'm like, I could also make that spontaneous.
Yeah.
So it's about the narrative we choose.
Yeah. And again, it comes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of like levity. There's some levity here. You know, it's like none of us are getting out of here alive. And yeah, it's like none of us are perfect. You know, we're all annoying. We're all, I said I was going to be there 5 minutes early. Now I'm 10 minutes later. Oh, this and that. And it's like, when we can disconnect from that need to point out to everybody well, you did this thing.
There you go.
You know, and it's like, I'm just in that place where, same as you, where I'm like, I don't have time. I literally do not have the time. It's like the things that I'm anchored in, the things that I'm wanting to create, the things that we're creating, right? You and I, but and then also like you and I, as far as like everybody who's out there wanting to do this work, making this frequency of love, doing the work, getting in there in the ways that they are, right? Again, healing is a medium, I think. And we talk about that all the time. I was talking about that with my husband because he's like, well, you know, he's like, the difference is like you want to heal the world, but like I'm really interested in healing like blank, blank, blank. And I was like, well, that's healing the world. Mm-hmm. And it was that reframe of like, although I may choose to speak about these things, the way in which when you're infusing that Reiki, that energy, right, into other things, that is what creates change.
Yes.
And this is what I think I meant to say when in the beginning when I was saying about when people are like, well, what is Reiki, or I don't understand, or this or that. And I'm like, there are so many things that you don't fully understand that you engage with all the time.
Yep.
You don't know how the internet works.
Yep.
I guarantee you don't know a lot about coding the back end of an Amazon cart, but you use it every day and you have no problem and you think that it makes your life better.
Yep.
So we have to stay open to these curiosities of what are these things. And I think it's okay, especially when we're first in that place of curiosity where you get to play around, you get to find what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's in the way that people find, as I would define it, the Holy Spirit. When I say holy, I don't mean Christian, but what really makes you whole. that thing that is spirit, that thing that guides you, that thing that brings you down, that holds you down, that makes you feel like the love that you are, that is the Holy Spirit. And we are all capable of that, but we all also access that. That was the Holy Spirit. In all of those different ways, right? Is she funny or she what? But you know what I mean? Where it's like, I also want to make sure, of like that there's so many ways that we could access that. And I'm actually curious if later at some point in your journey, as you're getting to know David Stample, RMT, if culinary and things on a larger scale are going to come up for you again.
That's a great question. I would love to do culinary workshops. Where if there are chefs that want to get into Reiki, being able to support them in that so that they can be confident in what they're doing.
That's cool.
And that's just kind of coming up right now. And also, I want to be able to attune more people. And I was lucky to be attuned by 2 great people, and they really gave me the flexibility to learn and to be intuitive with it. So like when we did our workshop the other day, it's really about knowing the basics, and then getting the attunement, and then going with the flow. And it's like watching y'all the other night between you and Renee was so magical, because it's like, wow, I guess this is how my Reiki Master felt. When she was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's like, wow, it is all intuitive. Yeah. It really is. It's like, let's learn the basics. And I feel like there should be a Reiki Master, Reiki practitioner in every household.
Yep.
Because then it's like, we can support ourselves in being empowered to regulate our emotions. Yep. But what happens is we take our emotions and we make them the end-all, be-all.
And then we store them in our body.
Yeah,
and then we have chronic pain, and we get sick, and Yep, so it's like if we hold space for others, then we can hold space for ourselves. So I'm really getting anchored in the fact that if my intention is to be healing and supportive to the collective, I got to do just that for myself. Because then now I can see what works for me, and then I can share that with others. So with the Reiki, it's like if you want to come back and do multiple Reiki sessions, we can attune you so you can be a self-healer. And then now using that energy, you can share with your dog, share with your community, share with your partner. But it's about being empowered. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when it comes to culinary arts, I still do catering. I'm still open to private chef work and cooking in homes. I really love that. But as of late, I'm really into doing in-home collective readings. I haven't done many, but they're really cool because then it's like, even if they don't necessarily believe, it gives them the opportunity to get some insight and clarity from spirit. So when I do my readings, it's all about tapping into the collective consciousness. Some people call it the Akashic Record. I'm tapping into the collective consciousness, and it's all about clarity so that people can feel better when they leave the space with me. And we all do it in some way, shape, or form once we're intentional.
Yep. Can I tell you the vision I just saw?
Yes.
So when you said teaching other chefs about like infusing Reiki in their meals, and I was sharing with you that with Channel 18, the production company that I have, and building it out to be like a conscious entertainment platform. And so I had this vision of you doing like a streamed cooking show, but you're doing both. So each time you're making a different meal, but then you're teaching us a different aspect of Reiki and infusing that. So it's literally where you now have this platform where you're doing both at the same time.
I love that. And it's a calm, chill set.
Yep.
And we're just hanging out.
Yep.
And we're prepped up. And we're just banging out the shots.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's so funny because that was a channeled message that you just gave and what I gave, because I never thought about that before sitting here with you today.
Well, didn't you say that's what your intention was?
There we are. And it's like, wow, okay, Spirit. So if we decide to trust what Spirit has for us, then we can trust that when Spirit has things for other people, we can just let it out. We can just go for it.
Yes.
So I started doing my readings once I got my Reiki attunement, my second one actually, because we did this like workshop thing and she showed me how to read, and I realized that when I was on Instagram, I was reading anyways. So I stopped. And I'm like, why am I afraid of Instagram? So one day I got some Oracle cards and went on to Instagram Live, and I said, if you want a reading, put a comment below. And that's really how I got started with my reading. And then my homegirl, Solely Rooted,
she came on. I love you so much, Chris.
She is everything. And I met her at a Reiki in the Park in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And we decided to go online, and she did tarot, I did oracle. So her friends would come on, and I would read them. My friends would come on, she would read them. And I built the nerve up, and I practiced to get the confidence to be able to come on Phoenix and Dragon and start doing it professionally. And it's like we have to be able to give ourselves a chance. You know what I'm saying? It'll be great for someone else to know me better than I know myself, to confirm and validate things for me. But I've learned that with my readings, I can't be like, maybe, kinda, sorta. It's like, no, Spirit's like, matter of fact, this is what we're giving. And if you shoot it and throw it out, we'll give you more. So when I was on Instagram, they were telling me about people's body language and how they laugh and how they do this. And I'm like, this is so odd. But because it was coming through, I was saying, hey, is this and that? And they were like, yeah, it is. And now that I'm doing readings more intentionally, those minute things don't really come through as much because the intention is to get through to what is really, but they wanted to see if I was going to trust.
Well, that's interesting because I call mine Gatorade dumps. So, like if you see like a coach, like, they won the game, and they throw the Gatorade on them, right? That's how Spirit comes through for me sometimes. Like I feel like all of a sudden I'll be like, here it comes. Like I can just feel it where it's like, and so I always know when I'm being channeled, and you'll notice it with me. It's like typically I close my eyes because it feels like I'm like pulling the energy out like this. And so, because it's almost like it goes in, and then it's not mine to keep in my body. So that's also why, like, it's almost like I pull it out like that. So I find, especially in sessions, it's like when I close my eyes, and you're so right where it's matter of fact, because it almost feels like I'm reading a teleprompter because it just comes out so quick and direct. And I know a lot of you that are practitioners, and all of you are going, but even if you think about that, let's say that, like, you're maybe not at this place yet where this language makes sense to you. When you're speaking the truth to somebody else, or when you're having a truthful conversation, you don't have to find the words. That's it. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's there. And so it's like that. I always say it's like, that's the part of you that knows. Trust the part of you that knows. And it doesn't mean that, like, when you're going, well, I don't know, it's like, no, that's not the part of you that knows. That's the logic part of your brain that's like, but this doesn't make sense where I got this information from, or why I have it, or who I'm giving it to. But it's the part of you that knows. When you just have that information, whether it's maybe right now it's just for yourself and like your intuition, like there's no negotiating with that. It's a knowing. You already know.
Yeah. And no, totally. Because then now when it comes to mediumship, I started pulling cards, but I thought it was going to be like Whoopi Goldberg at Ghosts and all these things jumping in and out. But I realized immediately, I had some concerns. So when I started working, I was like, Miss Candace, people have been asking me about mediumship, and I was able to do it. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. But I wasn't wanting to get too deep into it. But now I'm realizing that I would like to, as long as the intention is healing. Because it could be a roundabout thing where they just want to always tap in, and I want to be able to show them how to tap in for themselves. Yeah. So it's like, I think mediumship is so cool, but it's like, you can't have nobody out here gaslighting you when it comes to that. Yeah. Like, I would because sometimes, like, my cousin, I have a play cousin, and she passed away about 2 Christmases ago, and she never told me anything was going on, and I wish I would have been there or something like that. But it's like, the more that time goes on, it's like, she's like, I did that on purpose. Like, I loved you, and I know you love me, and I didn't get you involved on purpose because this was my journey. And then now I'll play certain songs, and she'll come in like, and I'm like, is that me? Is that me? Do you know what I'm talking about? I'll play like a certain song, and she'll be like, and I'm like, and it's like, I can't see it, I can't hear, but I can feel it. It's like, damn, Cher, okay. So then now she really likes this kind of work, you know what I'm saying? And she really likes the idea of what I'm doing. And I'm realizing, wow, we get this insight, but it's up to us to trust it. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Because like me, if I go to get a reading or a mediumship, I'm going to someone that I built a rapport with. Yep. That is like, okay, I know how he operates, and we're on the same level, and I'm not trying to woo him, but this is what's coming through. Yep. And it's like, for me, being able to sit with myself and get, wow, so she does come through, and I haven't ever gotten confirmation of it, but I know it to be able to talk to you about it now. Yep. And it's like, even when I did my attunement with my bestie, I don't remember what song it was, but she came through again. And it's something about this tongue out thing. She likes, because me and her used to like always talk crap and loved it in Jamaican accent. So anytime someone does it with me, she'll come in and be like, oh, I like what they said. Like my mom said dialect tonight, and Sharissa was like, ooh, dialect. And I'm like, am I tripping? But it's like, no.
Yeah, she's
so
there.
I'm not going to gaslight myself, but I can understand how somebody else would.
Yes.
So it's like, let's get that this is a big realm.
Yep.
And, oops, this is coming through. All these, y'all like to make it seem and act like social media is a portal to quote unquote heaven. And your family and your family that crossed the way would like if y'all just sat down at home and chit-chatted. This audience isn't necessary. It's like, yo, like, ooh, it's like heaven. So I had a student at one of the schools I worked at, and she was with me on the line, and we had a good rapport. And she's like, yo, Chef David, man, when we get to heaven, you're going to have a mansion on my street, and you're going to have a car, and we're going to drive, and you're going to have puppies, because she know I like puppies. And I'm like, yo, we can do that now. And then now we fly up in the sky enough to see that there's nothing really tangible up there. And I remember I was on the flight with Bobby, and we were on the private jet, so they flew it up into the sky like a baseball. Like a baseball. Like, I had never experienced anything like it before.
Yep.
And I was able to have a different perspective. I'm like, yo, heaven is right here. Like, right here.
Yeah.
Like, it's right here. And if I decide to tap into it, I can communicate.
Yep.
So it's like we're all, when they say medium, it's like anyone could be a medium for what's going on here.
Yeah.
You have to choose it.
Yes.
And in choosing it, you have to choose yourself.
Yep.
And then now if you want to do it as a profession, we have to be clear about what the intention is.
Yeah. But I love, there were 3 things that you said, and then I'm going to start to bring us in for a landing. What time are we at? You're almost at an hour and a half. Okay, that's what I said. I was like, typically, I was like, I knew that we would go probably 90 minutes. The idea where you're like, first of all, an audience isn't necessary is so beautiful, because like, coming down even a little bit from the spiritual, but more to like this earthly plane. I feel like if we could all tap into that more, where it's like you are waiting to get started because you think people are going to show up first. You are waiting thinking that I have to have this and this and this before I start. And it is that thing where I'm always like, if it's been placed in your heart, it's yours. You go. You don't need permission. You don't need anybody else. And it's like, why don't you get curious about what's going to happen? Like, it's time to get going, right? And it's like, I know that we're here and you're celebrating like a year at the shop and like the year in this place. And even as you were talking, there was, you know, the other part of my brain, I've done this a long time, so it's active listening. I want to be clear. But there's always like, I have like 3 clocks that are going, and maybe you have this in your brain too. So it's like, what's happening, actively engaged. Then there's like the higher part, and then there's sometimes like a quieter part, which is kind of my comedian, because it's always like there to catch what's ever coming in. And, you know, the higher part of me was like, oh yeah. And similarly, I am also, because so much of your experience of what you share about the Food Network and all that was very akin, again, mirrors to what I was experiencing in LA. And that now is this new, like, okay, now it's time to like anchor in. And although it may not be, I'm getting to know, you know, Rachael LaForce says blank, 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 but it is this new of like, so this is new. We get to start again. And how do we want to start? And what is that intention? And how do we stay open? And how do we tap into that heart center and know that everything that we want right now is available? That the universe, that the Food Network has set us up to win. And that we get to decide if we want to win or not.
Damn. And then here I won.
Oh, I love that so much. So let me, or no, go ahead.
No, I won. I won because I get to live this life. I get to look myself in the mirror and smile and love what I see. And I never necessarily hated what I saw, but I wasn't looking in the mirror as much as I do now, enjoying myself and really getting that I get to live this life. Like, I get to love people for a living. Like, I get to see people's light come on for a living. I get to see people get up off a table looking 10, 20 years younger, feeling lighter. I get to do that.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any permission. No one gave me permission to say, David, this is something that you can do. I had to fight for this. So all those festivals, blisters on my feet, walking up and down 12, 24 hours, loading in, loading out. It's like
Changing
it was
the tape on all the prepped food.
changing the tape, throwing away all the food when they're saying that this festival's made to end hunger.
Yep.
So yeah, go ahead, Rachael, put the bio on the website. Thank you. And thank you for allowing me to come to the set and play house.
Yep.
Because that's what they had me doing at the festival.
Yep.
And we're not going to get into the disparities of it.
Right.
Because again, I won. Everything happened for me to be sitting right here in this room and be living right around the corner and being able to come to work and literally be happy every day. And it's not that things don't happen. It's not that things don't come up. But it's like, yo, what does it look like to build community? So I was at home. Yes, I was at home. It was Sunday. And I got a missed call from a number I didn't recognize. And I was on the phone with PJ, my bestie, and we were talking. And Spirit was like, yeah, you need to listen to this voicemail. I got it. So I listened to the voicemail while on the phone. And there was a staff member from the shop telling me that their car needed to jump. And I'm like, wow, the fact that they called me, I need to get my ass up and go. And they're like, oh, and they left on the voicemail that they could call their grandma to come and help them. I'm like, no. So I called, and I thought I was late, and they were like, no, I'm right up the road. And it was like, yo, I get to come and do this jump for them. And they realized that I was there for them. And it's like, yo, this is building community. So that made me feel so warm and special that I got to support someone. And then they support me the best way that they can. So it's like we get to live this life, and we don't really use that terminology. We have to pay the bills. We have to do this. No, we get to pay the bills. We get to get up and be in traffic, and then we choose to let the traffic frustrate us or not. But there was a time where I was driving 35 minutes back and forth, and I used to bring my speaker, and I used to vibe out in the car. No, because I knew that when I got here, I needed to be in sound mind for my clients. Mm-hmm. So now that I live 2-3 minutes away, I am in sound mind when I see my clients because I get to walk over. I get to just drive over really quickly, and it's all a manifestation. So when they're saying, oh, manifestation is hard, no, it's the narrative that you've created around manifestation that's hard. Like, let's get clear on what it is that we want, what it is we're desiring, and then let's feel the feels, and let's speak the language of someone that already has it. So when I think about all the coincidences that happened in my life and the people that I've met and run into, coincidentally, it's like, you know, David, these were mile markers. Before you got here, you were like, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, that's going to happen. And by golly, I've seen some really interesting things happen. It's like, yo, there's something bigger than us and bigger than we can wrap our head around that's happening. But for some of us and for some people, it's scary to tap into that because they want to know, they want to understand. But think about all the things that we don't understand as humans. Does it stop us from sleeping at night? For some. But for others, there will always be disparity, but they realize that they do what they can do within their world.
Or even understanding that, like, even if you knew, like, okay. Like, what, I don't know. Like, I think about even the most, like, you know, where I always say whenever I'm setting intentions and then I'm like, and then anything beyond, like, miracles beyond what I could think, you know, and like, and so it is, right? Because I'm like, even what I think is the best thing, even what I think is the, like, that would be the thing. It's like, you don't know. No. We are so bad at judging what is the right thing for us, right? What is the, or let me say aligned, the aligned thing from us, the things that we need to go through. You know, like I was talking about earlier, people who are like, well, I don't like manifesting it or manifestation. It doesn't work or it's hogwash or whatever. I'm like, you know, because that's people who come in, they're like, oh, well, I'm manifesting this car. And I'm like, you got a job that's going to pay for that car? Because maybe we should start by manifesting the job. You know what I mean? Oh, my
gosh. Good idea. Great.
So,
yeah.
I mean, that's the thing where it's like when people are like, well, this isn't working, and like, I need to know. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, you don't. You got to do the first thing. You don't need to know. Because even, that's one thing I love. There's a spiritual teacher who I love, Nikki Novo. Shout out to Nikki. And I did a big reading with her recently, and I was asking some really big questions. And she was like, let me tell you, this is the only steps that they showed me. And I love that so much, whether she did see more and she knew that I only needed to hear this part, or even her guides were like, no, don't give it to her. We're only going to show you this much. Because, and I, of course, there's still a part of me that's like, but do I get the thing? Right?
Yeah.
But it's like, does it matter? Like, you got to do these things first. And even, that's what it was like, even if we knew that we're going to get the thing, then you got to get to work to get it. So it doesn't matter whether it's sitting there or not. You got to do the work. That's what Alex and I talk about that all the time. I go, we're going to do the work as though that's already there.
Yeah.
That audience is already waiting for us. Those people are already there. That award is being waited to pick up. That community is ready to be reached out to. They're already there. So we have to do our work so we can get there to support them.
Yep.
Bottom line.
That's it. And this is what it looks like. Being able to be transparent and communicative in a space that is safe so that we can show people how it's done so they can replicate it and do it again. So here at the shop, we do a healing circle the second Friday of every month. We do a group Reiki session the fourth Sunday of every month. We do a collective reading once a month. And the whole idea is for us to have situations like this across the country at every metaphysical shop. You know what I'm saying? I'm not here to triangulate any of those things. And actually, I've never been to any of those things before I started hosting them. So I have nothing to compare a healing circle to. I have nothing to compare a collective reading to. I have nothing to compare a group Reiki session to. So it's like that's what gets us stuck is this comparison. So when people say, oh, I want to do my readings like you, David, it's like, you have your own way of doing your readings. Let's give it a try. Because like the only person that I had as an example was Miss Cleo. Call me now. And I love that. Oh, yeah. I loved that.
You watched the documentary, obviously,
yes,
right?
and I loved it, and I felt, wow. And yeah, so that's a whole can of worms because I was like, wow, this is bad.
Yeah.
But it's like, do you want the truth of what's really going on, an energy read, or do you want a psychic situation?
Yeah.
So they had books, and they're like, yo, read off the book.
Yep.
But it's like, I could never do that.
Yep.
But it's like, some people are looking for a way out.
Yep.
And they are intuitive. And they're like, wow, I can add my intuitiveness into this. Cool, great. But I'm in this season of my life, I want longevity. Mm-hmm. So if Miss Cleo, well, rest in peace. If they were supposed to have another version of Miss Cleo or something that was gimmicky like that, it would, I guess, be off-putting, but now I know. Because the thing is, I'm sure it's fun. You know what I'm saying? To call me now, oh, it's just the man with the baby pinky toe. Yeah. The baby one. That's the baby father. You know what I'm saying? That's exciting. Like, we want to hear that. And it's like getting now that all that was acting. And then now, if I decide to shift to a disempowering narrative, oh, she makes the intuitives look bad. It's like, nah, it's a choice.
Yeah.
It's a choice. And just like we said the other day, Britney Spears said it best, there's only two kinds of people in the world, the ones that entertain and the ones that observe. So with the observers, it's like they're like, yo, I want to be entertained. So they'll take this reading and make it into entertainment. So then now you have Miss Cleo saying, this is for entertainment purposes only. Yeah. Not me, not you, not Renee. This is real life stuff. Yeah. So it's like, if you're going to take this for entertainment purposes, and we need to give you a disclaimer before we're doing this for you, maybe we're not the right fit. Yeah. So what I'm really getting at is let's be 10 toes down with who we say we are. So that when people come around and they try to make us something that we're not, we can easily stand up and be who we are. And decide to either ignore or respond with silence, but definitely not react. Because it's old news. It's like we no longer have to fight for people to believe who we are. We just got to lead by example. So my goal for this next year is to do more workshops, to do more group Reiki sessions, and to be able to spread the word about what we're sharing. There's nothing to destigmatize. There's nothing to get people to believe. I just want to continue to focus on being. Reiki works for me. It's shifted and changed my life, but I had to allow it to. So like when we're doing the course and we're going through the book and we're talking about all the benefits and all the things, it's like, yo, when I first started, I'm like, this is kind of far-fetched. But now in doing that workshop the other day, every single thing in that book is a fact. Every single thing. And I've seen it for myself, and I'm able to be an example of the benefits. Because, yo, every time I do a reading, I'm like, yo, I need to listen too. So when I'm like, yo, you need to eat something before you leave to have the energy to live the life that you want to live. And here I am getting out of the bed with nothing to eat, coming to do a group Reiki session. It's like, David, go to Tropical Smoothie Cafe and get you Bahama Mama. And then now the other day now, because I'm really iffy about where I go to get my food. I like to cook at home. But me and Bestie went the other day, and she got a jerk chicken wrap. And she was like, oh, do you want a piece? And I took a bite, and it was so good. and she gave me grace. So I got 3 bites in total. And now moving forward, I'm like, I'm going to get that again. You get what I'm saying? So it's like me finding a place. She wanted to go. We like it. She let me taste it. And now I'm like, in a pinch, I know where to get something quick to eat so I can have the energy to do what I need to do. But a lot of times we're just thinking about what we need to do. I don't want to go there. Yeah, they're really trying to get me to talk about something really. Yeah. So what
No, so just tell me. So those are the goals for next year. We talked all about from there and stepping into David. And so what do you think? I'll ask you this, which is like, what do you feel like is the thing that was your like misfit self that now you feel like you've incorporated and now is your misfit light?
My charisma.
Okay.
My charisma. I feel like as a child, I was always charismatic. I was always bubbly. I was always loving and caring, and kids decided to interpret that as gay. So I had to figure out what I was going to make that mean. So as an adult now, a word that they like to use to tear me down, I use to love people. So I like to call people sissy. Sissy angel, sissy anything.
I really love that you call me that. Every time, today you texted me and you're like, hi, sissy. It makes me feel it's such a warm term of endearment is like the energy that I feel from it. So that's exactly what the work that I'm wanting to do is all about, is like, what is the things that are rightfully ours that were taken from us? And I feel like when we are little, they are taken because we don't necessarily even know that we can reclaim them for ourselves. And that's the work for us to do as adults, is how can we reclaim that for ourselves and allow that, as I define it, to be our misfit light. It's the thing that we stand in. And I say light because it's like, that's what we turn on our lighthouse so other people can find us. So people that are also in need of us or want to share in our light, they know how to find us.
Yes.
So I love it so much. That was it. We did it. I don't think we left anything on the floor. This is the longest I've ever gone.
Yeah, we did.
We were
did
doing
really
it. We were doing it.
Yeah, and it was an honor and a pleasure, and I look forward to being able to do this again. I hope that people decide to tap in next season when you come off of your hiatus.
Yes.
And come see us live and in person.
Yes.
And if you haven't already, be sure to book a session with Rachael LaForce, and you can find her on our website.
I love it so much. Right? It's so good. It was so good. So please go and follow Chef David in all of the places. If you're in the greater Atlanta area, he offers multiple offerings consistently every week. He does a midweek meditation. He does a hot cocoa hour, which I just realized earlier in the intro, I said he reminds me of just a warm, hot cup of cocoa. That would make sense. And he offers all sorts of healing Reiki circles. He's also certifying people to become Reiki instructors. I did my own certification with him. I could not recommend it enough. So please jump on all of that. Everywhere to find him, all of that will be in the show notes. You guys know where to find me. Now, if you really enjoyed that conversation with Chef David and I, and you are in the Atlanta area, we have one more event together. We'll be doing many more throughout 2024, but this is the last of our holiday soul salon that I've been promoting to you guys. So Monday, December 18th at 7 p.m. at Phoenix and Dragon Bookstore in Sandy Springs is our final event together. Even if you're not in the Atlanta area, if you know somebody you think that it would be fun or helpful, they're looking for community, they're a little lonely, please send it to them. All are welcome. We're going to be lighting what I have dubbed our gift tree. Every event, I've had people write down what they think their own personal gifts are and add it to our tree. And so we're going to kind of do a quote unquote lighting just to remind ourselves of all of the gifts that we have around us all the time. So we can in fact fight the bullshit. You know what I mean? I don't want any more of this. Like, but how are we going to do it? Well, look, okay, this is just from about 50 people in one area. We can light this bitch up. Okay. All right. That is my pep talk. So that's on the 18th. You can come to that. If you're in the Atlanta area, on the 20th, I am doing a holiday extravaganza show starring Tracy Taylor. That's right. If you've been watching me on Instagram, you've been following along for the 25 Days of Tracy. That's a fully free event. It's family friendly. We encourage you to wear your pajamas, bring your favorite holiday books, and come and celebrate with us. So I've got that. And then I'm really excited because on December 31st, I have created a game with the new tech startup app Every. So every day you can log on for a new game that's been created by a different creator, somebody who is either like holistic, within healing, within mindfulness, wellness, mental health, spirituality. It's a really, really fun app. So you can go and check that out. You can download any place that you grab your apps there at the App Store. And on the 31st, you can play my game. So I'm really excited. I've got all of my offerings going, and you still have that code available to you. It wasn't just for Black Friday. This is my gift to you for being here. So again, you can use the code end of year all season long. Oh, if any of you listen to that all the way through, God bless you. God bless you. I wish I had a treat for you, but you win it. Whatever it is, you've won. All right, friends, be well, stay warm. I love you so much. See you next week.
Time, weather, and